Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Why don't you guys get some chairs? I feel bad. Isn't it hard? Is it okay?
Yes, that's good.
Okay. I know it's carpet, but the padding is really, really thin. Okay. Well, please feel free. If anybody feels like they need to sit on the chair, please don't hesitate, inshallah. Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Allahumma la sahla illa ma ja'altahu sahla, wa anta ya hayyu ya qayyumu taj'alul hazna idha shi'ta sahlan sahla. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. So, inshallah, we'll continue where we left off last time from the book of Imam Ghazali, rahimahullah ta'ala. This section is really hard to talk about because he's going to talk about conceit, arrogance, and pride. And he says in some of his books that the people who have the biggest problem with conceit are people of knowledge. So, and in fact, there's even some ahadith that say that the fitna of learning sacred knowledge is conceit. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us all. He says, rahimahullah ta'ala, conceit, arrogance, and pride. Can you guys see?
Yeah.
Kind of. Conceit is a deep-seated disease. It is when the servant looks at himself with the eye of honor and self-glorification, while at others with the eye of lowliness and disdain. Its effect on the tongue is that he says, I this and I that. As accursed Iblis said, I am better than him. You created me from fire and you created him from clay. Its result when in company is believing oneself to be above others, seeking to have precedence and to take pride of place at gatherings. In discussion, it results in an aversion to being contradicted. The arrogant person is one who, when warned, haughtily rejects the advice, yet when warning others, does so aggressively. Anyone who sees himself as better than one of Allah's creatures is arrogant. I'm going to pause here because after this he's going to start talking about the remedy for this. So I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, inshallah. What Imam Ghazali is doing here is he is in an effort to try to be very concise, he is lumping a few things together that in other books he actually has separate discussions on. So even the title, if you look at it, conceit, arrogance, and pride, these are actually three separate diseases that are related to each other, but there's three separate diseases. Conceit is not the same as arrogance. Conceit leads to arrogance. But since he's trying to be concise, he is putting it all together. There is an error in the translation here. The first paragraph starts out by saying conceit is a deep-seated disease. It shouldn't say that. The first word conceit should just be scratched out, because what he's saying in the Arabic is conceit, arrogance, and pride. All of those are deep-seated diseases. Okay, and these are when the servant looks at himself with the eye of honor. So he's talking about all those three together. So what I wanted to do is just briefly, inshallah, talk about conceit first, and then talk about arrogance. If we have time today, otherwise we'll continue that next time, inshallah. I really feel like this is one of the biggest problems that many of us have, and it really plays out in our interactions with each other, within families, between friends, at work, in masajid. In fact, this is probably one of the biggest reasons. Conceit and arrogance are probably two of the biggest reasons why people become unmasked, because we do that to each other. So I thought I'll spend a little bit more time, inshallah. And there's also some stuff going on that is related to this discussion as well, stuff that's going on in the country and in the world. So I hope you'll make some connections, and I won't have to do that for you. So first of all, vanity. The word for vanity in Arabic is ujub, and it's there in the Arabic. وَأَمَّا الْعُجُبُ ujub. Ujub is the word for vanity. Kibr is the word for arrogance. So let's talk about ujub first. Ujub means, it's translated as vanity or conceit. It can also be translated as self-admiration. It can also mean narcissism. So ujub is to admire oneself. If I have a talent or I have a set of talents and I admire myself for those talents, that's ujub. If I have possessions, whether it's wealth or any sort of toys, adult toys. Sorry, not adult toys. Toys for adults. I don't mean toys for kids, like iPhones, devices, homes. I apologize. Possessions, okay? And I admire my possessions. I look at them and I like, yeah, this is amazing, A person's looks, they can admire their own looks, their status, their position in society. People of knowledge, they admire themselves for how much they have learned. They'll give a khutbah and then they'll look at a recording of their khutbah and they'll admire how they delivered that khutbah. For example, worshippers can become very conceited about their worship. People with great ideas can become conceited with their great ideas, etc., etc., etc. Okay, so this is what ujub is. What is not ujub is if I have certain talents that I have acquired through hard work, and I notice my talents, and I know my talents, and I am happy with my talents, and I feel good about having those talents, but I recognize that these are gifts from Allah. So I feel not conceited, but blessed. Okay, there's a very distinct difference between feeling blessed, meaning that I have these talents. Yes, I worked hard to acquire them, but I couldn't have gotten them without Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He can take them away from me at any time. Okay, if that is the feeling, then that is not conceit. And there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, sorry, you had a question?
Well, I guess would that be confidence in a way, but recognizing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the reason for it?
Yeah, confidence is a type of that too. Like when you're faced with a situation that you need to overcome a challenge, for example, so you feel confident, or you're given a task and you take that task because you know that you can do it, because you know you have the skills, the talents, but you don't attribute that to yourself, you attribute that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's where the difference is between conceit and not being conceited. That the person who's conceited attributes those things to them and forgets Allah from the equation and doesn't think that they're ever going to lose this. Okay? Whereas someone who's not conceited connects that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, keeps Allah in the equation, and realizes that Allah can take it away at any time. So yeah, one can be confident with conceit or without conceit. Depends on the attitude. There's a question here.
Yeah, when you say that, just putting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the equation,
Yeah.
is that by itself sufficient, or could it still be conceit and vanity, even though even if you do acknowledge Allah?
If you truly acknowledge Allah, meaning acknowledging Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, meaning that you realize that you didn't get this by your own self, that this is a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala This is a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you feel happy to enjoy a blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has favored you with, realizing that He can take it away at any time, then that's not conceit. That's fine. Now you can still be arrogant with that gift, which we'll talk about later, okay? But that's not conceit. You're not admiring yourself at that point. You are happy with the favor that Allah gave you, okay? All right, so now, what causes conceit? What causes a person to be full of themselves, to admire oneself for these kinds of things? One of the things that causes it is praise from others. Okay, so if I put myself in situations where people are praising me, and I just take in that praise and allow that to settle in and accept that and enjoy that, then that makes me conceited. And unfortunately, that's what happens a lot of times on social media, you know, because the more followers you get, the more likes you get, that feeds into that narcissism, right? So if one puts themselves in that situation, then they are putting themselves in a situation where they may be vulnerable to becoming conceited. Another cause for ujub is when we surround ourselves with fans rather than true friends or mentors. Okay, if we always hang out with people that are just fans, and this happens unfortunately to a lot of leaders, community leaders, scholars, speakers, if they only hang out with fans and followers and do not make time to spend with true friends and mentors, then they can very easily become conceited, because those followers and fans are consistently going to praise you, and they're going to overlook your faults. Okay, never going to talk about them. A true friend is someone who's going to talk about your faults, who's going to give you nasiha. And that's what the Prophet ﷺ said, that a believer is a mirror for another believer, because they show you their faults. You know, that's a true friend. So if we realize that, then if we avoid those kinds of situations and look for situations where we can spend some time with a mentor, with a true friend, then hopefully we can overcome those feelings of conceit. And the third and final cause that I have here for being conceited is it's related to what we just said earlier, that when we attribute those virtues that we have to ourselves rather than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we secure that we will never lose that virtue, and that's essentially ignoring Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. Tawheed al-Rububiyyah is part of our Iman, and Tawheed al-Rububiyyah means that we realize that everything comes from Allah. Everything comes from Allah. So the more we have Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, the more we will realize that all of our talents are from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The less we have of that Tawheed, the less we will recognize that, the less we will remember that, and the more we will be deluded to think that this is my own hard work, that I have earned this is my resources, my talents, and so on. So these are the causes. Now, how do we know whether we are conceited? What are some signs to look for? What are some things, some flags, some behavioral signs perhaps that we can look for in our own lives to see whether we might be suffering from this disease of conceit? Okay, I'm going to mention a couple, and then I'm going to ask you to help me out, inshallah ta'ala. So one I have here is the urge to share everything about myself. When I have the urge to share everything about myself, then I know that I am suffering from this problem. Potentially. You know, I mean, there can always be exceptions, but potentially it might be driven by conceit. If I have this constant urge to share selfies. Okay. or I have done some work, I want to share it with everybody. It could be because I really want to benefit other people with my work. It could be, but it could also be because I'm just looking for praise, So I just want to feed my ego because I admire my work, So also the urge to share opinions, right? Anytime something happens in the Muslim community, in the world, I develop an opinion about it, and then I have to go and share that opinion with the whole world, right? Some rumor starts, within 40 minutes, there are hundreds of comments about that rumor. I didn't even take the time to process. I developed an opinion. Yes, I admire my opinion. I must be right. I have something very important to tell the world. And I go and I share it with everybody. And then an hour later, there's a YouTube video in which I'm driving and I'm recording myself, analyzing and commenting on the situation, right? I don't even want to wait until I park my car. I'm going to make this selfie video while I'm driving because my opinion is so amazing and so important that it has to be shared with the world now, right? This can be a potential sign of ujub, and we have to be very careful about that. The Prophet ﷺ said, "At-ta'anni min Allah wal-ajalatu min ash-shaytan." That deliberation, taking your time, reflecting, thinking about something before you do it is from Allah, while hastiness is from shaitan. So that's one sign that I have here. Another sign that I have here is when I state my opinions as facts. I have an opinion about something, but my opinion is the only right opinion. Every other opinion is wrong because those are just opinions, and my opinion is actually fact. I know what I'm talking about. I cannot be wrong, And that's not the way of our ulama. Even like great ulama like Imam Shafi'i, he used to say that I believe I am right, but I could be wrong. And I believe that my opponent is wrong, but he could be right. So even when it came to opinions about fiqh and aqidah and so on, this was their attitude. And this shows that the person is free from this disease of ujub. Whereas when we state our opinions as facts, then that may be a sign that we are suffering from this disease of ujub. So what are some of the other signs that you can think of conceit, of ujub, like something that we do or we say that might be a flag? Yeah.
If you're in a discussion with someone, and if that person you think is wrong, and you think you're right, and you make a lot of noise, critique them, say hurtful things to them, just say, oh, you're wrong. That could be.
Yeah, the way that we disagree with somebody else, right? The attitude with which we disagree with somebody else, if it's done in an arrogant way, then that's a sign that I am conceited. One of the reasons why conceit is so dangerous is because it leads to arrogance. And arrogance is extremely dangerous, as we'll talk about if we have time, inshallah, today. Arrogance is very, very dangerous. It's one of the most dangerous diseases of the heart. And conceit is a precursor for arrogance. Okay, so yeah, that's definitely a sign of not only conceit, but arrogance. What else? Yeah.
Striving for leadership positions be a sign of conceit also?
Well, what do you think? Striving for leadership positions, right? Would that be a sign of conceit?
That's what the intention is behind it, right? If you're doing it for Allah's sake, then I'd say no.
Okay. If you're doing it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sake, then no, otherwise might be. Yeah, Shazib?
I would say if you could accomplish what you want to do in leadership without the position, and you choose to still pursue it, then it is. But if you do it, if you're seeking the leadership position to accomplish what could not be done without the position, then that makes sense.
No, but I think the question here is a little bit different. I mean, you're right about that. That that's a different disease altogether. Seeking leadership in and of itself is a disease of the heart. But the question here is that if I just believe that I am qualified to be in this position of leadership, and that's what makes me seek that position because I feel like I'm qualified for this position, well, isn't that admiring myself for my talents? Isn't that ujub? Isn't that conceit in and of itself?
Well, it depends on if you're trying to, let's say your position is a leadership in your work.
Yeah.
And you are qualified because you achieved X, Y, Z
Mhm.
work.
Mhm.
And based off of your talents achieved for that, from your earlier point that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of He gave me tests, I was able to conquer them.
Mhm.
I'm well positioned for that promotion.
Mhm.
Then I don't think that is a sign of ujub. However, if you don't have any of that, but you still think I'm the right one because I know myself more than anyone else does,
Yeah.
and I'm better than them,
Yeah.
then I believe that is.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's what I was thinking too, what you just said. That's what I think. Now, do we have any precedents from the Quran or the Sunnah about seeking leadership? What did the Prophet ﷺ or the Quran, what do they say about seeking leadership? Is this something that is generally encouraged or discouraged? Seeking a position, seeking a leadership position.
Generally discouraged.
Generally discouraged, right?
Responsibility.
Responsibility is that's a little bit different. We're talking about like a position, like a leadership position, right? So generally discouraged, I mean, the Prophet ﷺ said, for example, that the one who seeks it, don't give it to him. But the one who gets it without seeking it, they are helped by Allah. They're going to be helped by Allah in that position. But the one who gets it after they seek it, Allah is not going to help them in that position. And there are other texts like that that seem to indicate that He generally discouraged that. However, at the same time, we have some examples where we see some very good people asking for leadership. An example of that is in the Quran when Yusuf alayhi salam finally gets released from prison, and the king meets with him, and he asks him that he wants to reward him for the fact that he had interpreted his dream and all this time he was in prison for no crime. So he wanted to reward him with something. So he told him, ask me whatever you want. Okay? So Yusuf alayhi salam asks him to put him in charge of essentially the financial ministry. And he says, because I have these qualities, and he lists his talents, his skills. Okay? So this is an example where he asks for a position and he lists his qualities. All right? But here again, the intention, right? Why is he doing that? Is it because he wants the position? Well, the answer is no. He's asking for that because he knows that there are some tough times coming based on the dream of the king. The king had a dream that, basically the interpretation of the dream was that in a few years there was going to be a drought for 7 years. There's going to be consistent 7 years of drought where people are going to be in a very difficult situation. So since he knew that, he asked that if he put him in charge of the Ministry of Finances, then he will make a plan to make sure that when that time comes, they have enough to take them through those 7 years. Okay? And then he mentions the qualities that he has with the intention, realizing that this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are gifts that Allah gave me. I'm not going to hide these gifts from you just as because I'm trying to be humble. No. This is not the time for that. This is the time to let the person know that I have these skills. I didn't acquire them myself. Allah gave me them. Alhamdulillah, I have them. So I'm telling you. So if you put me in this position, then I can bring this benefit to the people. So when that's the attitude, there's nothing wrong with that. So in a work type of situation, right, the same thing applies. I mean, if you see that there is a project that needs a project manager or something like that, and you believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you the skills, the experience to be able to take care of that. And so you go to your boss or whoever and ask that, please, I would like to take on this responsibility because I think I can do it. Then, that's a totally different attitude than someone who wants to be in that position so that they become popular, so that they gain a reputation, and so on and so forth. So yes, sorry.
Because I was thinking, if you're seeking a leadership position just because it has other benefits that might benefit you, for instance, that let's say you have from a salary standpoint, this is easier to explain.
Yeah.
I have a family, my salary is low,
Yeah.
so I need a higher position because one, I qualify, but two, I need more means to support my new family. Then I guess the intention is
Exactly. I mean, I want to grow in my work so that I can make more money, so that I can provide more for my family. That's fine, inshallah. Then that's different. But if the intention is to one up somebody else at work, because I have this attitude of just I'm trying to feed my ego, just in trying to do that I want to show them that I got this and they didn't get that. And that's a different intention. It's a petty type of intention that wouldn't be right. Okay? Yeah, Bilal.
So obviously there's the intention of why you want the leadership position, but then you also get to the discussion of how you pursue it. So we're talking about this line over here that says I this, I that. And if, say, you're pursuing public office, that's something that they definitely do. I this, I that. So how does that reconcile with?
I mean, look, the whole process of seeking public office is contrary to the spirit of Islam. It really is, right? I mean, that's, if you look at our leaders of the past, if you look at the four Khulafa and Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, and you don't find that, right? So, but in a type of situation, I would say if the situation is such that is the norm of the land where you live, right? That is the only way to get into public office. And you believe that you have some benefit that you can provide to the community that nobody else is going to provide. So you need to be in that position to get there. Then you have no choice but to follow that process. But realize that process is contrary to the spirit of Islam. That's not how it's supposed to be. Yeah. Any other signs of conceit? Yeah.
So is being competitive for this, just to win, isn't that kind of being conceitful? I want to beat you because I want to beat you. No, just because you were saying that if you're trying to one up somebody,
Yeah.
that's at work just because you're competitive and you just want to beat that person, not because of anything else. Isn't that also kind of a sign of?
Well, I don't know. I mean, what I think is that competition can be very healthy as well to help a company or to help an individual try to reach their maximum potential. So depends on what kind of competition it is. If it is a healthy type of competition, I talked a little bit about this when I talked about envy a couple of sessions ago. And I gave the example of Taqwa Seminary and Qalam Seminary, for example, right? So if it's a healthy kind of competition with a noble intention, then it might be okay. But if it's just to one up the other person because I want to be the one that everybody talks about, not them, then that's envy, right? I'm trying to take something away from them and I want that for myself. So, Allahu Alam. Good questions. All right, so I have here a few other things about conceit. How about this as a sign of conceit? This is something completely different, but I think I want your thoughts on this. In our deen we have something called haram and we have something called makruh, right? Haram is not allowed, is sinful. Is makruh allowed or not allowed? It's allowed. It's disliked, but it's allowed. Is it sinful? Is it punishable? If I do a makruh, do I get punished by Allah? No, I don't. That's how it differs from haram. If I do haram, that's punishable. If I do makruh, it's not punishable. That's why we say it's allowed, but it's disliked. Okay? Similarly, we have wajib and we have mustahab. Right? Wajib is obligatory. Mustahab is recommended. All right. So if I don't do a wajib, is that sinful? If I don't do a wajib, that's sinful, right? If I don't do something that's mustahab, that's recommended, is that sinful? No, it's not sinful, right? All right. Now, if I indulge in makruh and I abandon the mustahab, I never pray the sunnah prayers, I always do the makruh, could that be a sign of conceit? How can that be a sign of conceit? Okay, let me ask you this. Could that be a sign of delusion? Can I say that I'm deluded with myself?
Yeah.
How so?
What's the reasoning for you to, like, if you know it's looked down upon and you still continue to do it? Like, what's
Yeah.
your intention, I guess? Do you want to be...
The intention is that it's not required. I don't have to do it.
So you're never going above and beyond what you need.
Yeah, I don't need to.
I think what that does is that it's sort of conceited because you are so sure that you checked off every other box that you don't need to do anything else. Like, hey, I'm just...
Exactly, right. So that's a form of delusion. I'm deluded because I think that I'm already going to Jannah, so I don't need those extras, right? And so I am conceited because I admire that I got this, I'm okay, all right? So this is a very subtle kind of sign that a person is conceited or maybe deluded, okay? Delusion is another disease that's related to conceitedness that Imam Ghazali also has other chapters on in his books. All right, so any other signs that you guys want to share for conceitedness? Something that comes to your mind? Yeah?
Just the way you take criticism.
The way you take criticism.
Some people criticize you and your first reaction is to say that you're wrong. Everything you say is wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Somebody gives you criticism and the way that you respond to criticism is with anger rather than, thank you. Oh, I never thought about that. Thank you. You know, it's a completely different attitude. And actually, to be frank with you, that's also a sign of arrogance. Because arrogance, as we'll talk about later, is defined as, the Prophet ﷺ defined arrogance as batarul haqq wa ghamtun nas. And batarul haqq means to deny the truth. You know, when somebody gives you sincere advice in a form of criticism, constructive criticism, right? And you deny that, you know, you're completely wrong. What are you talking about? You know, then you're denying the truth, and that's a sign of arrogance because you believe yourself, I believe myself to be better than the other person. How can the other person give me advice? I'm supposed to give them advice. I'm better than them. So that's not just a sign of conceit, but that's actually a sign of something even more dangerous, which is arrogance. Yeah. Jazakallah khair.
Yeah, I was going to say, so you mentioned it, I think it was either conceit or arrogance is the fitna of seeking knowledge, but then not seeking knowledge might also be a sign of delusion, which ties into conceit because
Absolutely. You don't need to. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah, seeking knowledge, what I said earlier was that seeking knowledge can often lead to a person becoming conceited. But not seeking knowledge may be a sign that a person is deluded or conceited. Yeah, you're right. Any other ones? Yes.
I'm not sure if this would apply, but what if choosing friends deliberately who you think are maybe like lesser than you, in the sense that you talked about wanting to seek that fame, right? So you pick friends who you think will look up to you just for the sake of looking up to you or what, and then that sort of creates a delusion in your mind that you're this great person.
Yes.
Would that be a form of conceit, or is that something else?
I think that would be that would cause conceit. You know, like if I continuously put myself in that environment, then that will, you know, feed my ego that I'm better than everybody else around me. So, you know, what else am I going to feel like except that I'm better than everybody else, which is arrogance, actually. It's more than conceit. So, all right, let's talk about some cures, okay, because it's too depressing. Let's talk about cures. What can we do to fix this? Any ideas? What are some remedies? Sisters are always good at remedies. Yes? Yeah. Surround yourself with trusted friends, with mentors that can pull you down back to earth and put you in place. It's hard to do, isn't it? Like, I mean, to hear those kinds of things, it's hard to do, but it's therapy. We need that. That's what it is. Any treatment, remedy, medication is often bitter, right? But if we realize that we need that, you know. Imam Mukhtar was here. He was my mentor, and sometimes he would give it to me. You know, when one time I finished the prayer in i'tikaf, he was in i'tikaf, so I led witr at the end of Taraweeh, and then I'm barely done with my witr, and since he was in i'tikaf, he would pray in his own room in the clinic. So I'm done with the prayer, I'm saying salam to people, and I'm trying to walk out of the musalla, and somebody comes to me and he says, Sheikh Mukhtar wants to talk to you. I was like, okay, I'm coming. Then by the time I make it to the extended prayer hall, another messenger comes to me, Sheikh Mukhtar is waiting for you in the room. I was like, okay, then I'm sorry, I have to go. So I go to the office, and he's sitting there, and he has some advice for me, you know. And to sit there and to take that advice, it's tough, but it's really important, and it's good for the soul, you know. And unfortunately, a lot of I'll tell you, even a lot of people of knowledge, a lot of ulama, they're very bad at taking advice. They're very bad at taking advice because, like I said, the ego just becomes so inflated. So, but it doesn't just apply to ulama; it applies to everybody, you know. And we really need to, like the sister said, we really need to surround ourselves with such people. Excellent. What else? What's another remedy? Yeah.
Yeah, I think you kind of just mentioned it, remembering where you came from. So like, you know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're here because of him, and you know, remembering, like scholars, I'm sure they started somewhere, so remembering that it's all because of God, will that.
Yes, absolutely. Give all the credit to Allah. Where He can take it away. Remember where you came from. And the Prophet ﷺ, some of the du'as that he has taught us to say on different occasions, if you think about it, they actually are doing exactly that. Like, I'll give you an example. When you look at a mirror, right? Now, if you're a good-looking person and you're looking at a mirror, there's a danger there of feeling conceited, right? There's a dua that the Prophet ﷺ taught us to say when we look at the mirror. And the dua is, Allahumma innaka ahsanta khalqi fahassin khuluqi. That, oh Allah, you have made my outer image beautiful. So please beautify my inner image too. Like, think about it. If you really thought about that dua as you said it, who are you connecting this beauty to? To Allah. You are the one who gave me this. So please beautify my inner image too. In other words, don't allow this ugly quality of conceit and delusion and arrogance to develop inside of me. Beautify my inner image too. You know, another example, when we have our possessions, like nowadays we have cars. In the old days they had camels, right? And camels were expensive commodities. If you had a red camel, that's going to stand out in the pack. Nowadays, you have a BMW, it's going to stand out. So, well, what do you do when you get in your car? What do you say? Subhanalladhi sakhara lana hadha. Glory be to the one who made this ride, gave this ride under my control, put this ride under my control. وَمَا كُنَّا لَهُ مُقْرِنِينَ. And we wouldn't be able to do it ourselves, right? So we're connecting the ability to have this ride to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if we say these du'as knowing what we're saying, then we begin to remedy this disease before it even develops. And in general, as you know, tabarakallah, masha'Allah, right? Saying these things. And what does masha'Allah means? What Allah has willed. This is by the will of Allah. If Allah didn't will it, wouldn't be here. Okay? So if we say masha'Allah meaning what we're saying, then we're already remedying this quality from developing. Yeah.
But if you're deeply conceited,
yeah,
you won't really recognize that anything is happening to you from that perspective. Like,
yeah.
You wouldn't even surround yourself with such people to criticize, because I mean it's going to lead to arrogance.
Yeah.
So is the remedy more to prevent yourself to be conceited, or if you are, I mean, the only way I can think of is Allah just gives you a test, and He tests whether or not you can come out of it or you get worse.
Well, I mean, some of these things are remedies even when even when conceitedness is deep-seated. Like some of these du'as, for example, right? I mean, if you keep saying them every time you get in your car, every time you look at the mirror, then hopefully they will start to pierce through what's already there. But there's some other things too. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. الله أكبر، الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة سيدنا محمد مقام محمود الذي وعدت أنك لا تخلف الميعاد. So another beautiful dua that also helps. Remember, one of the things that we said earlier was one of the things that feeds conceitedness is praise from others, right? So when somebody praises you, there's actually a dua for that, for receiving praise. And the dua was actually something that Sayyidina Abu Bakr used to say. What he used to say was, when somebody would praise him, he would say, Allahumma ja'alni khayran mimma yadhunnun wa la tu'akhidni bima yaqulun waghfir li ma la ya'lamun. Which means that, oh Allah, Allahumma ja'alni khayran mimma yadhunnun. Oh Allah, make me better than what they think of me. Make me better than what they think of me. Wa la tu'akhidni bima yaqulun. and please don't take me to account for what they're saying about me. In other words, you know that I'm not that great. Please don't take me to account for what all these praises that they're attaching to me. وَاغْفِرْ لِي مَا لَا يَعْلَمُونَ, and please forgive me for that which they don't know, but you know. You know my faults. These people don't know that. You have covered them from them, so please forgive me for those. I mean, really think about it. If you remember this dua and you say that dua at that moment, or you make it a habit to say this dua frequently as people praise you, then it will help conceitedness from growing inside of you. But the thing is that be careful not to say it out loud, because then it becomes a show-off. Really, think about it. I mean, this is a problem, that the cure for conceitedness is humility, right? But we cannot make a show of humility. Just like we talked about last time when Sayyidina Umar saw that man walking on the street with his head down, right? And he asked him, what are you doing? What's wrong with you? So he said, I'm in khushu'. Khushu' means humility, focus and humility. So he hit him with his stick and he said, walk straight, straighten your back. Humility is in the heart. Khushu' is in the heart. It's not in your neck. All right? So, and that happens like people who are shuyukh, for example, is very tricky because, people call us sheikh, right? And we're not sheikhs. We're not. I mean, we have seen shuyukh. Some of you haven't. We have seen shuyukh. We have studied with shuyukh. We know what a sheikh is. We're just students. So what happens is like people call us sheikh, and then we tell them, please don't call me sheikh. But then what's the intention for saying that? When I'm saying that, don't call me sheikh, am I saying it so that I show you that I'm a humble person? Right? Or am I really saying it out of humility? Right? So it's very tricky. Humility, when it's done so obviously, can be very tricky. What is the intention behind it? Like people say, for example, well, in my humble opinion, right? In my humble opinion. Well, if it is so humble, then why do you have to say it, right? So, but a person maybe just saying it without thinking about it. So the intention is very important. Humility is very important as an antidote or antidote for conceitedness, but it has to be done with the right intention. So one thing that helps is to read stories of humility and how the Prophet ﷺ used to be humble. What time is prayer? 8:45? Right. So like for example, if a man comes home, right, and he has all these expectations that his wife is going to serve him, that his children are going to serve him, and this is also a sign of conceitedness, right? I mean, why do they have to serve me? Why don't I serve them? All right? Because I feel that I'm better than them. So it's a sign of arrogance, actually. And in contradistinction to that, the Prophet ﷺ used to serve his family, as his wife herself testified after his death. Lest people say, oh, she only said that because she wanted to make him happy. No, she said it after he passed away. When she was asked, tell us something about the Prophet ﷺ, what kinds of things would he do at home? So she said, كَانَ فِي مِهْنَةِ أَهْلِهِ. He would serve his family. He would see him sweeping the floor, fixing his shoes, and that sort of thing. And that's humility. So reading stories of the righteous people, especially stories of humility, also helps to counter these feelings of conceit and arrogance. So that's all I have for conceit. I think I'm going to save the discussion on arrogance until next week, inshallah, and we'll go back and finish this page where Imam al-Ghazali actually has a very, very powerful remedy for arrogance, And then we're not going to read the next page in its entirety. We're just going to read the first paragraph of the next page, and that's going to be it, inshallah. So we'll do that next time. But we have a few minutes. Does anybody have any reflections, questions, comments about what we talked about today or anything else in general? Yeah?
So if you know someone who is conceited, and no, in terms of like, because sometimes they don't like to think, they're on the path to arrogance in the sense that they don't want to be told that, oh, you're conceited. And it's really hard to kind of point it out too without you also sounding a little bit, you know, the same way.
Yeah.
So how would you approach like someone of that sense? You just leave them, or
No, the best thing to do would be to tell them about the waves halaqa. No, I mean, look, let me tell you this. In general, when we talk about these things, diseases of the heart, it's the first reaction inside of us is to think of other people that we have seen these problems with. Okay? And we really need to struggle to overcome that and try to focus on ourselves. Okay? When we see these examples of signs and causes and so on, all of us have this tendency. The first thing that comes to mind, oh, I know somebody like that, right? But we really need to push that away and become introspective. And then if there is a person really who I think that really needs to listen to this, then bring them to the halaqa, or bring them to a halaqa or a session where these things are being talked about, and you both benefit from that, inshallah ta'ala. That's the better attitude to have when we are learning about the diseases of the heart. Wallahu alam. Yeah.
So points that we were talking about criticism and how to best approach somebody like that, like in your advice, like if you have a disagreement with somebody but you don't want to say anything hurtful or disrespectful, but then you know at the same time that what they're doing can be perceived as wrong, how would you best handle that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have an easy answer for that. You know, when you're dealing with someone who is acting arrogantly or someone who is acting in a conceited manner, how do you advise that person? Oftentimes, they're not in a position to listen in that phase, and maybe you have to wait for another time when they are not in that feeling and talk to them at that point. But in that conversation, you know, you're not going to get to them. Make dua for them. Make dua for that person. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about that in the Quran. وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُ اتَّقِ اللَّهَ أَخَذَتْهُ الْعِزَّةُ بِالْإِثْمِ. That sometimes you talk to people and you tell them, fear Allah, and they lash out at you. How dare you tell me to fear Allah? You fear Allah, right? So that's a person who's not ready to listen at that moment. And the only thing that I have, I mean, maybe some of the brothers and sisters have better advice, but they're just not ready to listen in that conversation. You need to give them time, let them get over whatever feeling they have, find them in a better situation, and then give them advice. And in the meanwhile, just make dua for them, because this is something that we all struggle with. And like I said, arrogance is something very, very serious and very difficult to remedy, you know. But I don't know if anybody has any advice for what the brother is asking for. Anybody? Yes, go ahead.
I don't have advice, I have another question.
Okay, inshallah.
So going back to the social media thing, because I think that's very relevant to all of us in this room. And not so much talking about conceit for yourself, but if you are wanting to let other people know of a friend or a family member or someone very close to you that did something of significance, what is the appropriate, I know intention is important, but if this person is humble in a way that they're never going to bring it upon themselves, like let's say they won some award or they did something that's of significant value to themselves or to the company or whatever, the people they're with, and you are the one who make that knowledge public, is that a form of conceit on your behalf because you associate with this person very closely, or what's the appropriate avenue to do that, or should you just kind of not bring that up?
I don't see why that would be conceit. I mean, I could see how maybe it might be that you're really seeking fame for yourself because of association, by association, yeah. I mean, that could be playing in the background, but not necessarily. I might genuinely be wanting to let people know that this person has this great achievement that people need to benefit from. So that's perfectly fine, inshallah. Yeah. Wallahu alam. Yes.
It's more of a question dealing with arrogance and pride. Let's say you know someone, they're in a situation where they're very proud about something and they display arrogance, right? And you want to tell them directly, hey, that could lead to some dangers eventually, but not directly. So let's say suddenly you try to hint at it by making a hypothetical situation about someone or about yourself. It's not true, but you're just giving a message saying, hey, I was in this situation in the past, I felt the same, so and this happened.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just trying to advise it in a subtle manner. Is that something okay to do? What's the view on that?
When you're talking to an arrogant person?
Yeah.
It might be, I don't
making up
know.
something hypothetical, right? It's not even.
Yeah, I mean, if you think that it's going to help, if you think it's going to help, I mean, to be honest with you, the best way to deal with arrogance, in my experience, is patience. It's patience. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even talks about that in the Quran, that just to exercise restraint and forbearance, and if you do that, then your most bitter enemy may become your best friend, right? So the Prophet ﷺ dealt with arrogant people. The kuffar, the mushrikun of Mecca, the number one reason why they rejected his message was because of arrogance, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about that in the Quran. So his reaction, his response to the way that they were treating him in Mecca especially, we see that it was full of self-restraint, full of patience, full of forbearance, and he changed the hearts of people through that. So the famous story of him carrying the load of a woman, right, an old lady. The old lady wanted some help carrying a load from one place to another, and the Prophet ﷺ comes and helps her, and she's like, well, okay, you can help me, but don't talk to me about Muhammad. She doesn't know who he is, so don't talk to me about Muhammad. And she's bad-mouthing him the whole way, because of him there's no peace in this land, and he's dividing families and blah blah blah, and he's quietly just helping her, carrying that load all the way until her destination. And she finally puts it down, is about to leave, and the lady's like, thank you, but before you go, who are you, what's your name? And he says, I'm Muhammad ibn Abdullah. She's flabbergasted, and she accepts Islam. Why? Because she saw his character in the face of that type of attitude, his forbearance and total composure. So, but it's tough. It's tough to be able to maintain that. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us that. I'm going to stop here. It's almost time for Isha. Jazakumullah khairan. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.